Right, there we go. Regiment Chernigov has been pushed off the hill, and in a rare moment, one of the commanders has actually decided to advance his troops after combat. So the old regiment down there, the Line Regiment 36, belonging to Saint-Hilaire's corps, has surged forward and occupied the position previously held by the enemy. The cavalry are just watching, and because only one unit can move into that position, and they've been driven off the ridge. You see, yes, with only one hit, but they did lose the melee, so of course they are disordered. In so doing, by moving away from the mass of the enemy, they went through these chaps here, so they have become disordered, which is handy because they're about to open fire. Right, so let's have them firing disordered at these chaps here, which are Line Regiment 43. Okay, here's the Russian guns hitting on 4.56s because they are at short range, and they missed anyway, so we don't have to worry about the saving throws because they're disordered. Right, then we have Regiment 43, and this is just shooting, remember. They're just loosing off their muskets. So sixes we're looking for, and of course the enemy will get saving throws, as do unlimited artillery from incoming fire that is not siege or heavy. Okay, so they got 2 misses anyway, so there we go, a lot of talk. Right, so now we have to brace ourselves. The French have to brace themselves because now they're going to get a lot of musketry coming at them, because they are stationary and they have their infamous dedicated guns. So we got 5 dice here coming from the musketeers. There we go, firing at the artillery here. Yep, here we go. Whoops. So 2 hits, and let's see if the artillery can roll saving rolls. And they save 1, so they were hit once. Okay. Right, that coming that way. Right, so now they're going to fire back. They've got 1, because they're not stationary, but they are close range. And they missed. Right, so it's going to be 1 hit on them. Okay, all right, here's the next batch of Russian mayhem coming in from the musketeers here, who've got 5 dice shooting at us. There we go, firing at Regiment 55. Okay, whoops, there we are. They've got 1 hit, and there's no saving throw on that one, my friend. Right. Okay, and they're going to fire back. They've got 2 dice. No saving throws. Ooh, but they've scored a hit. Right. Now, of course, this is shooting, so we don't have to worry about melee winners and losers. So they're both just going to take 1 hit. Okay, so there's our hit on the Regiment Muromsk, and there's our hit on the Regiment 55. Okay, and then finally, we got the 5 coming in here. Let's substitute some dice there. Right, so we got, make it 5 dice. There we go. Get rid of those odd ones. There we are. Coming in from the Russians. Right, brace yourselves, mes amis. They have but 1 hit, you know. Okay. And the French fire back. Plucky chaps. 2 dice. Nothing. Okay. Right. So there's a hit there on regiment number 10. Okay. Well, I just adjudicated the division exhaustion and the potential of division collapse, morale collapse at the end of the French turn 5. And although Oudélé has a newly exhausted division, the morale did not collapse. They rolled the requisite 4, and so they yeah, survived by a whisker. So that means now that I've marked them with a casualty figure on the bases, which are what I do to remind me that these units belong to an exhausted division, because otherwise it would be easy to unintentionally make them advance, for example, towards the enemy, which they're not allowed to do. Okay, so they can sort of hold a position, but they can't move towards the enemy. So basically, in a battle like this, I don't think we're going to see much action from them. Right. Now, the interesting development is that over here, with Fabian von der Ostensachen, chappie over here, his chaps up here, they've taken a severe pounding, and they've got 2 strength points left before they hit division exhaustion. If the French can bag another 2 strength points, they will hit division exhaustion. Okay, remember, in the victory conditions in this battle, that's what it's all about. The French just have to keep 1 unexhausted division at the end of the battle. If they can do that, okay, that's all they need to do in terms of their own forces. But what they have to do to the Russians is they have to exhaust every Russian division, which, as I said, it always struck me that that was a very tall order for them to be able to achieve in this battle. But, well, we shall see. We've done turn 5, so the French have got, 6, 7, 8, 9. They've got 4 more turns. And everything to play for? I don't know. I think they can do some serious damage to the Russians, but I've got my doubts about whether they can win the battle. Anyway, so 2 more hits on them, which seems entirely achievable. And as I say, losses to the French just... I know it's tragic, but it doesn't really matter, because as long as the French can keep, let's say, 1 division of cavalry, there's a division of cavalry right there. Just that unit is a division of cavalry. So as long as they can keep them away from the enemy and safe, then that's all they have to do in terms of conserving their own forces. Right, now, of course, things are changing, because, of course, if the French, making... bloody great holes in the Russian lines, then of course it means that they can have for example, their cuirassiers do a bit of marauding down there, send them off down that way, something like that. All very exciting. And of course, after all, that would be somewhat historical in the sense that, Eylau is famous for its really big cavalry charge. I mean, I've seen it on the telly and everything, so, it's all there. Right, what else have we got? What else was interesting statistically? That's right. I noticed that what did we had Bagavut there is 7 strength points away. That's right, Bagavut is 7 strength points away from exhaustion. Osterman Tolstoy, which is sort of these chaps here, these chaps, so they are sort of spread out, and these chaps over here got massive command problems. They have still got 7 points up their sleeve before they become exhausted. It's just a really big division, or corps, but all 1 division. And then you've got Kamensky back here, which is with, let's see, what have we got? It's all these chaps. There's Bagavut is there, if I didn't make that clear. He's there, and he got the cavalry. Kamensky has got, he's got what? No cavalry. He's got this infantry here and these guns. Okay. They have taken no losses, so they've got 9 strength points they would have to lose to become exhausted. So it's a tall order for the French. I mean, if you just look at that, they're at the back, so they're the hardest for the French to get at the moment. So it would take 9 hits on them to exhaust them, and the French have got 4 turns in which to do that, and exhaust them, well, I know I'm talking mumbo jumbo here. Of course, they haven't exhausted anyone. It's easy to imagine that they, in their next turn, will become exhausted. Okay, it's a start. It's a start. So let's be positive here. But the French have got no more reinforcements. All their reinforcements have already entered the battle. What they really want to do, of course, is that they've got these massive cavalry forces, especially absolutely top-notch. I mean, these chaps here, these are all morale 6. their heavy cavalry, and then down the end here we finally have what is it? De France heavy brigade of Non-Souti's division, and they are morale 7. Good lord, good lord. Right, well, let's carry on. And here we are. It's turn 5 for the Russians. So that is, what is that? That's noon. And the snow continues to fall, you know, in your imagination. And we've had lots of interesting developments. I'm actually sitting down this time, and we'll see if we can go over them from this vantage point. Let's see, what have we got? So, yes, a lot happened down here. We had Kaminsky, who was lurking back here, of course, with his sort of reserve corps, as it were, division. On the Russian side, in this particular battle, in the order of battle, you've basically got several Russian corps, each one of which is actually a division. So, yeah, it's the terms are pretty much the same thing for the Russians. Not the French, not at all, but for the Russians in this particular battle, yes, they do. Right, so you had Kamensky, who was down here, of course. And what they did was they moved forward and they slotted 3 brigades into this position here to hold the line, you see, hold the line. And these chaps had to tag along behind in contact with them, because they started out in contact with them, which made them be in command by contact, and so they're required to stay in contact. So they did. They're in contact with them, they're in contact with them, so that's good enough. So they slotted in there. Right. Kamensky's artillery is back here, because there's nowhere else to put it. There's an absolute logjam with the Russian artillery. Most of it's pointed in the wrong direction. Most of it can't see anything. And big problem with this, or rather big problem contributing to all this, is the command problems from old Osterman Tolstoy over here. As you'll recall from the special scenario rules, in this scenario, because of the snow, the command radius is only 400 yards as opposed to the usual 600. So the markers I've been using, these sort of wounded soldiers who are limping away, or carrying comrades, as we can see. Yes, I know it's confusing that they appear to be French, but there we go. That's what I've got. Yeah, so a lot of his forces continue to be out of command. The cavalry here are out of command. The artillery started out of command. They won't be next turn, but they are at the moment. These chaps out of command. The Cossacks out of command, you know, so it goes. Right, so a lot of artillery pointing in the wrong direction. Couldn't move some of them. This sort of thing, couldn't do anything without becoming closer to the enemy. Oh, I also need to correct a mistake really quickly. I said about exhausted division down there, Oudélé, and I said, and if they're exhausted, that will mean they can't move towards the enemy. They can move towards the enemy. They can move towards the enemy and be useful by taking up some sort of defensive position, but the thing they can't do is they can't move into contact with the enemy. Right. On the other hand, if they're out of command, like these chaps here, for example, they can't move towards a visible enemy. So with the chaps that were down here, that got really restrictive, because, of course, there's enemy there, enemy here. So if you were sort of like in the middle, they basically couldn't have moved anywhere without violating that rule. So anyway, there we go. Everyone on the Russian, it was only the Russians, of course, everyone who attempted to recover from disorder was able to recover from disorder. Well done, chaps. Plucky chaps. Okay. Let's see. So, yeah, Kamensky moved forward to here. Over here, the forces of Osterman Tolstoy, these chaps, because he'd moved over to here, they were in command this time, and they were able to do some exciting maneuvers. So they've thrown themselves over here at Moran's infantry brigade, one of Moran's brigades. This one commanded by, who's that? Bruard? No, Bruand? Or Bruard? Or Bruard, I suppose. Something along those lines. Anyway, there they are. They're the ones who achieved a significant victory last half hour, as it were. Anyway, they stuck their necks out, so now they're going to have to pay the price. So they're being charged here, they're being charged in the flank, as we can see, so that will mean that they could potentially fail their morale test. Okay. Right, so they're up against them. They're basically stuck where they were. Artillery scattered all over the place. Cavalry stuck where it is because it's out of command. They've surged forward. Everybody else has stayed in position. So now these three down here, as I say, are part of Kamensky's corps. So they're not stationary, but other than that, they're completely unscratched. Let's see. These chaps, we've set up the dice, of course, as usual. We can see morale tests. The white dice are going to be taken because of melee. We can see that, let's see, these have to test because they're within short range of the enemy's guns. These chaps can fire, even though it's the Russian turn, because they have the enemy within, it's called close range. They can fire as well. Mercifully for the Russians, neither those nor those are stationary. So they got one die. They have to test because of the close range of the enemy's guns. Okay, down here, they are not within close range. They can fire then, but they don't have to test morale and so forth and so on. And then further down there, all right, let's take to my feet at this point. Here we go. And, right, down here, we've had the Grenadiers that got pushed off the hill, have sorted themselves out. They recovered their disorder, and they have charged up the hill to hit these chaps here. So they've got, morale-wise, it's not the best for them because they're morale 5 and they're morale 6 and they're up the hill and they're not up the hill. But they do have 5 dice because of their dedicated guns and they've only got 4. So we'll see what happens there. Other than that, I've run out of dice for the Russians. So each one of the Russian brigades, of course, is going to be firing with 5 dice. And the French are firing back with 2. Now, that was a tactical decision there because what the Russian commander could have chosen to do was not fire at the infantry down there. If I can point these chaps down here. If they didn't fire at them, then the French wouldn't have had permission to fire under the game rules. The so-called counter-attacking, which you can do if the enemy is within your close range or if the enemy fires at you. So you could have said, well, why didn't von der Ossensacken tell his chaps not to fire? Because if the French fire at them, they might exhaust the division if they can the Russian division, if the French can cause enough casualties. But the flip side is, because the Russians have such a volume of fire, it seemed like a shame to waste it. Yes, that's all very well, but the key thing is this. The Russians have the opportunity to exhaust Saint-Hilaire's division, this lot, not including the cavalry, themselves. So both divisions there could become exhausted in this particular turn of the game. Right. So, yeah, as I say, I ran out of dice, so I'll have to put the Russian dice down there as they become available. And I've written myself a note to get to acquire some more dice because obviously in V&B you wouldn't normally need this many dice, of course. It's just that I've developed this habit. I think it works rather well for when I'm making the films to lay them all out like this because then it means I can just sort of move along up the line and get things done quite quickly without having to sort of figure out how many dice to use whilst on camera and all that sort of thing. Right, so let's go ahead and do our morale tests. Okay, well, I'm going to start with the French here because they're being attacked in the flank and I don't want to forget that. So that means their morale, normally 6, goes down to 5. So they could... where's the dice shaker? I'll just use my hand this time. Okay, they could potentially lose the morale test. Here we go. And they did. Good Lord. Right. Okay. So they've lost their morale test. Oh. Well, I mean, it looked pretty bad for them anyway. I mean, let's be honest. Okay. So they're disordered there. Whoops. They're disordered. Okay. And, right, that's one morale test done. So now we have the Russians. Give it a good shake. And they've got a morale of, what have they got? They're morale 5, aren't they? Yes. They failed their morale test. Okay. They had no modifiers. yeah, you don't get a bonus, as it were, for attacking a flank. They get a negative for being attacked in the flank. Yeah. So right, let's roll for these chaps. They're morale 5. They're fine. And then these chaps have to test morale because they're being fired on by the enemy's artillery. Okay, give it a good shake up, and they've passed their test. Okay. One moment. Driving me nuts. I like my shaker. So rolling for the Grenadiers. Okay, what have they got? They have a morale of 6, of course. Yeah, they're the Pavlovsky. Morale of 6, and they have a negative because they are disordered. So if they roll 6, they fail. Passed it by a whisker. Look at that. Okay, now these chaps here, standard old musketeers. They've got a morale of 5, and they passed theirs by a whisker. Okay, let's see, what other morale tests do we have to do? We have to do 3 down there because of the melee, and I would think, no, 2 because of the melee, and then we've got some short range fire we have to test as well, so let's do that. Okay. All right, so I've left my little tray behind. We'll roll them into there, or throw them in there when we're done. Let's see, so French testing morale here, they're morale 5, and that's right, they get a +1. The people who are uphill get the benefit. So in Volley and Bayonet, they don't. It's not plateaus like that. Like this looks flat-topped hills. In Volley and Bayonet, they are definitely going uphill. Think of them as being think of the crest as being basically running down here, and they're beyond the crest, so they're coming uphill to charge them. Anyway, that's what I'm doing. So here we go. Well, they rolled 1 anyway, so they're fine. Okay, a lot of chatter there. Let's see, they're going to go. There's the Grenadiers going up. All right, so they have a morale of 5, which is unaffected. They got the bonus for the hill. They don't get a negative because of the hill. They passed. These chaps here have got a morale of 5, and they passed. Okay, they're getting a lot of white dice in there, so probably should get those out. And the French down here, they are disordered, so they've got a morale of 4, and they've rolled a 2, so they're fine. Yep, that's all of our morale tests done, so we can move on to combat. Okay, let's start off with the biggest punch. No, it's just, well, yeah, let's roll them first. They are not disordered. All right, see what they can do. Looking for 6s, and they've got nothing. Right, here we are. Q. Now, got 5 from here because these are Jaegers. You see, that's why they didn't have the dedicated guns. They are musketeers, so they have dedicated guns. So rolling 5 dice, but they are disordered. Right, well, they got 2 hits. So let's see if the French can get saving throws from the disordered combat. And they got 1 save, so they still have 1 hit on them. Okay. All right, get rid of that lot. And then we got the French coming in. Now, whoops. These are also disordered. So here we go at the this is split between the 2 units of Russians. And ooh, well, they got 2 hits. Very respectable. Okay. And now hang on a second though. Right. So we'll roll these separately. Let's see if they can save themselves. And they fail, so there's a hit on them. And then the other chaps fail, so there's a hit on them. So look at that. My golly gosh. Just letting this sink in now. So who would have thought that in a situation like that you'd end up with that? 1 hit on the French and 2 hits on the Russians. Right. Okay. So that means that the Russians lost the melee. And they have a disordered unit. That means that unit is going to rout. And if it routes directly away from the enemy, then I think it will rout off the edge of the world. Yes. Okay, let's sort that out. Right, and here's what we have. Yes, the one brigade, one of Osterman Tolstoy's brigades, they did indeed rout off the edge of the table, down there, off the edge of the world. The other unit that was there lost. The other unit retreated back down here, went through that lot, so they became disordered. Okay, and now Osterman Tolstoy, I think he's only 2 strength points away from, because the loss of that brigade, of obviously routing off, was a big thing, from division exhaustion. Right, and I believe old Moron yeah, that's right, Moron here. So commanding those chaps and this artillery here is only 1 strength point away from exhaustion. So a lot of, on both sides, a lot of, not surprisingly, a lot of divisions are getting very close to exhaustion here. Okay, these chaps here basically just did a free facing change. The thing that they've tried to do is put themselves where they can't be fired on by these from the muskets from this lot here, and they're facing the cavalry. The cavalry will be in command next Russian turn. Let's see. And what do we got? Yep. Okay, moving on. Down here we got the French who can fire even though it's the Russian turn. Right, kind of losing track of which turn it was then. Right. Okay, so they can fire at short range at the musketeers there. Let's just roll it up and see what happens. Okay, so there's a hit on them. And before I mark that one, let's just get a few done. There's this one here. These chaps firing at short range. So, let's see, they could fire at the Grenadiers here, who have already got 2 hits on them and are disordered. Or they could fire at the Musketeers here. I think they're going to fire at the Grenadiers. I like the idea of trying to get rid of that threat. Yeah. Nothing doing there. Okay. Right, so let's mark that. We've marked it there, and just to confirm, yes, they've now got 2 strength points left before they become exhausted. Okay, so now we can move on down the battle line here as we move around the table. Okay, see what we got. Yeah, it's a bit of a reach, but okay, so we've got the Russian artillery there. Just one moment. Yeah, we have the Russian artillery there, and they are stationary, but they're not firing at close range. Their only target is the French artillery there. So they're going to fire, there we go, 2 dice because they're stationary. And they're going to fire at the artillery, which will get saving. Well, will they get saving? Yes, they will, because they're not heavy artillery firing. And they missed anyway. So that's the main thing to concentrate on. Right. I didn't mention, that's right, I didn't mention that the light cavalry here that belong to Bagavut, old Karl, they moved to this position here. They wanted to charge them. It would have been pretty even. They wanted to charge them, but they couldn't because they couldn't see them. They were on the other side of the hill. So they've moved as far forward as they can, and they've basically put themselves into some species of blocking position. Whether they're going to get attacked by French heavy cavalry next turn, we'll see. But it felt like something had to be done. Okay, so then down here, we've got that melee to sort out. Is there any particular sequence that the Russian commander would like to use? Better get some dice first. All right, we've got the dice sorted out. Okay, so Let's see. Is there any particular order in which I wish to do this? If the... Well, there's a melee, so of course you can... See, you can't lose a firefight, as it were. You can lose a melee, I mean, technically under the rules. But there's no such concept as losing a firefight, okay? So, for example, even if they pasted them and they're disordered, they're going nowhere. They're not going to run away because they've taken a pasting, okay? They could get eliminated, but, right. In a melee, on the other hand, things move, right? So if they had to retreat from them, it's tempting to think, well, they'd go straight backwards. But no, you're supposed to move away from the center mass of the enemy, as far as I understand things. So therefore, that would be along an axis that was more like that. And that would mean that they would definitely clip through them. And that would mean they would become disordered. But there are no other melees going on, so I suppose it doesn't really matter. Could they somehow disorder people who are going to fire at them? No, not really. Not as far as I can see. So, yes. Just thinking through the details. Anyway, right. So this is an important bit. So let's see what happens up there. Okay, so there are no saving throws. No one in any of this is disordered except them. Right, so we'll see what the French first can do, the Russians. Okay, and they've got nothing. Obviously, we're looking for sixes here. There are no... Yeah, right. They got nothing. Okay. Here we go with the Russians. They're going in with 5 because they have dedicated guns. And they've got nothing. Okay, so now we have a melee tie. And let me check the table. Okay, according to me, there are no modifiers. So they are morale 5. They're not your morale 6 like that lot over there. These are morale 5. And they're also morale 5 because they're, as I keep saying, apparently the designers of the scenario thought that they didn't justify being given morale 6, even though they are grenadiers. They've just got pointy hats on and apparently they're not particularly solid chaps. Right, so we need to just roll them up and see what happens. Okay, so we've got the French. And right, so they're both the same, yeah, they're both morale 5. Let's see what happens. And they both, they tie, sorry. So you roll it again. Not surprisingly. Here we go. And this time the Russians win. Okay, so the Russians have won the melee. Let's sort that out. All right, well, that's what I figure should happen. These chaps have advanced up the hill. They can't take the exact position that the enemy held because that would put them too close to them with their zone of control. The enemy retreated back down the hill, of course, and in so doing they went through part of them. They clipped them, as it were, so they are disordered and they're down there disordered, but no actual casualties were sustained in that whole operation. Right, a bloodless melee. It's probably something to do with the snow. But anyway, down here, let's see. So I guess we carry on now. Why not? We've got the short-range stationary fire, so that might give them a bit of a pasting from the heavy artillery there. And oh, yes, it did. Look at that. 2 hits on them. They're not going to like that. Okay. And then they can fire back disordered, desultory sort of fire, and they got nothing. Okay, all right, so there's 2 hits there. I'll do the hits at the end. I think I'll just carry on working my way down the line. So now we got the Russian, yes, solid Russian musketry coming in here with their dedicated guns. Unfortunately, poor target. They're firing at the artillery there, but very well. 3 5s, but no 6s, so no cigar on that one, I'm afraid. Okay. All right. Come on, chaps, you've got to make some casualties. Right, here we go. 5 from the musketeers here. All right. Oh, I say. Oh, I do say. 3 hits. Yes, no saving throws there. No, good lord. I think we can be certain that Saint-Hilaire's division is exhausted. Well, we assess it, of course, at the end of the turn, but I'm almost certain it's exhausted. Yeah. Okay. And then we've got the 5 coming in from the end, chaps. Okay. That 4 was already in there. Okay. And there are no hits. Right. Good Lord. No hits there. All right. You shouldn't really do it like this. You should do each one, I suppose, as you resolve it. Yes, you know, sort of like bang, 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 bang. Yeah. Anyway, firing from them. Let's see, 4, 5, or 6 will qualify. Nothing doing there. All right. Firing from them. Looking for 6s. The chap straight in front of them. Ooh, there's a hit. Okay, hit on them. I think that means Osterman Tolstoy is... von der Ostensaken is 1 point right now away from division exhaustion. Let's see what happens here. Will they roll a 6? They did not. They did not, my dear fellow and fellowettes. Right, so let's sort all that out. And this is where we've ended up. Right, so... these chaps... von der Ostensaken, correcting a previous mistake, I said Carl. Carl, that's Carl over there. Over here it's Fabian von der Ostensaken. They are 1 point away from division exhaustion. Tolstoy down there, down in that sort of swirling maelstrom down there, they're 2 points away from exhaustion. Bagovut, that's Carl here. They're pretty sound. And then Kamensky, which has just come forward, have no casualties at all. So I think they're 9 points away from exhaustion. Okay. Heads up down here, breaking news, is that Saint-Hilaire, who took his men forward into a wall of musketry, now is the owner of an exhausted division. They did not collapse, okay? Plenty of scope for that in the future, obviously, but it is now an exhausted division. So we've got the casualty markers there indicating that these chaps cannot... what is it? The key thing is that they cannot close into contact with the enemy. So they could just stand there and carry on firing and get shot to pieces, probably. Or they could withdraw, a bit more tactical finesse. They could withdraw and have the cavalry smash forward here. See, the problem is that, yeah, you know, if they've one more casualty on these, which shouldn't be too difficult to achieve, maybe even just sort of move some people out of the way so you can shoot at them with the artillery, and you would be able to exhaust that division. Okay. However, in terms of sort of like wiping them away from the field so you can then cruise majestically down here, one of the problems is that I don't know how many men they've got left there, but you see this brigade here, for example, and this brigade here, they're in absolutely mint condition. They are unblemished. They've got nice, tidy, shiny uniforms. And the key point being that they are stationary on a hill and they have dedicated guns. So they're tough nuts to crack. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so it's all very exciting. A lot going on. A lot of combat. That's good. You know, you don't want a battle in which it's all sort of running around and nobody gets their teeth into anything. So there's a lot going on. Let's see, was there any other sort of massively moving thing that was discovered? Well, I think that's about it for the Russian turn. So we move on to the French turn 6. Right, it is turn 6 for the French. It is 1 p.m. And by golly, there is a lot going on, as you can see. I mean, look about you. You may also notice that I seem to have picked up some more dice, but even so, I still didn't get enough. I need to get some more. I ran out of red dice trying to indicate all the Russian combat. But so the French, what have they done? Well, of course, they've got to just get stuck in and not worry about their losses, except they've just got to have one division that is not exhausted. And as I said before, that's a division right there. Just that stand right there is a division. So if that one division wasn't exhausted, that satisfied that requirement. And then beyond that, the losses that they take under the victory conditions, the losses that they take don't affect the victory. What they've got to do is exhaust all the Russian divisions. Right, let's just scooch that out of the way over here off camera if possible. There we go, just tidy up a bit. Right, so working our way from down here then, it's all terribly exciting. These chaps, brave chaps to the last, they're surrounded, but they're sort of surrounded. The thing is that they tend to be surrounded by troops that are somewhat out of command and that sort of thing. So the cavalry, for example, have just been standing around over there sort of like, well, we'd like to have a go at them, or rather, we would like to have a go at French, please. But they've been given no orders to charge them because they're out of command. Anyway, so these chaps try to recover from disorder. There's been a lot of failure to recover from disorder. They tried, but they failed. But they've charged these chaps anyway, and they were able to hit them in the flank. So we've got a nice flank attack going in there. I think I need to correct something. I was watching, it's been a few days since I filmed, and I think I said something along the lines, I don't have the rules in front of me, but I said something along the lines of, when a charge happens in the flank in the morale test, only one unit will be affected. But I believe I'll look through it now. But as I remember, I think it's a positive modifier for the charger and a negative modifier for the unit which is charged. Anyway, so they're going in there, and they also have, of course, they're disordered, which is very helpful. But they also have the artillery here that can fire as well. All right, and then let's see, moving our way through this lot, these chaps here, which are Gudin, they're in good condition, and they have just charged straight forward at the Pavlovsky Grenadiers here. They've taken 2 hits. They can take 2 more hits, and that will wipe them out. They're disordered though, so of course that could mean that in charging them, they might cause them to fail a morale test. Which means that they could rout before the combat even starts. We shall see. Over here, Gudin's other brigade, which is, who is that? Petit infantry. Okay, Petit. So I don't know if that's a person or just a small unit. I don't know. Anyway, they've charged forward, hit these chaps here. And the only thing we don't like there, so these are they're musketeers, that's right, so they do have dedicated guns, but they're not stationary yet, you see, which is why, well, you just got to throw everything in this battle anyway, so they threw themselves in. At least they've got an advantage. They're not stationary. They're also not counting as being on a hill, so they've got 5 dice and they've got 4, but they've got better morale? Yes, they do have better morale, so we shall see. Unfortunately, though, for them, they've got fire that can be coming in from these chaps here. Yep, but they've got fire coming in from here against them, obviously. Then we have these chaps here, very squarely charging uphill, which is not so good at these chaps. That's slightly offset by the fact that they are Jaegers, so they don't have dedicated guns. So they're throwing 4 dice and the melee, and they're throwing 4 dice themselves. Okay. Unfortunately for them, is you got to do what you got to do. And unfortunately for them, we've got these chaps here, which are rolling 5 dice, shooting at them. So there's a very good chance they could take some substantial casualties. Let me just plop him next to them. There we go. Right. Over here, we've had some decisive action. We've actually seen a cavalry charge, or a heavy cavalry charge. I suppose we had a light cavalry charge before, didn't we, these chaps here? But the cuirassiers over here, belonging to Non-Souti, 1 brigade has charged down there. They were just about able to see that unit on the side of the hill there. They've gone over there, weren't able to get this unit, wanted to get this unit in there as well, but to do that, they would have passed the zone of control of these chaps here. They would have gone sailing past them, and that's not allowed. to sail by so close to them. So couldn't be done. Could only get one unit in there. Pulled this unit back to get them out of the way. Let's see, so we do at least have heavies against lights, although they do count as having charged uphill in order to get to them, so that's a negative there. But they have morale 6 and they have morale 5. We shall see what happens. Let's see, these chaps have positioned themselves able to fire. It was all they could do to get rid of their disorder. They weren't able to get rid of their disorder. Okay, oh, that's right, Murat, Marshal Murat himself, teamed up with them to be able to command them, because there were 3 units, of course, 2 and 3 here, and so the divisional commander has stayed back with them there, so everybody's under command. All right, then these chaps here have thrown themselves into the fray. Now they're not allowed to charge, of course, because they're in an exhausted division, and it's a bit of a logic puzzle here, because technically under V&B, they're on the sort of that half of the hill. So if you imagine a crest line running down here, that means if they went up there, it's like, well, when do they stop? Because they have to stop before they contact the enemy, but they'd have to be able to see them, and they wouldn't be able to see them until they crossed over the crest of the hill. So I've just fudged it and said, oh, I'm just going to stop them there. Okay, so let's imagine they're peeking over the top of the hill and they can actually see them. Anyway, so they can shoot at them even if they can't charge them. Over here, these chaps are shooting with 2 dice because they recovered from disorder and therefore can't go stationary in the same turn. So at least they've lost their disorder, shooting with 2 dice. They weren't disordered, they've gone stationary. They're now firing at close range with 2 dice, so that's good, for the French at least. And then these chaps here, stationary again, with firing with 4 dice, okay? And you will recall, I think I mentioned before, that old von der Ostensacken over here, I believe it's 1 more hit and his division becomes exhausted. Now that is very important, because yes, if they're exhausted, they cannot charge the French. Okay, fine. But of course, the other thing that happens, my dear fellows and fellowettes, is that they all will, at the end of the turn, lose their stationary status, which leads to a far more level playing field over there. Now, of course, once they've exhausted the division from the victory conditions, that's what needed to be done. Job done. Okay, hang on. Take a breath there. But what about the rest of the battle? You know, like, well, I mean, why keep pounding on them? You've already exhausted them. Why not sort of, I don't know, disengage and attack somebody else? Well, of course, the thing is that hopefully there will be some hope if we keep throwing everything down here that we can just punch a hole right through there and then come and fall upon the flank here of Bagavout and do something to get our teeth into Kamensky down there. Right. Kamensky, remember, is completely untouched, and Bagavout has still got 7 points, I think, away from divisional exhaustion. So, right, and all the while, of course, we've got all these dragoons just waiting to pounce. Pounce is something they may do as soon as we can get them to no longer be stationary, because then that would mean that they would be meleeing with 5 dice for the units that have dedicated guns, and they all do. So they would still be meleeing with 5 dice, but at least the cavalry meleeing with 4 dice would be a bit more even than going in as they are now when they're stationary, where they would be meleeing with 7 dice, which is not so hot. Right. So, yeah, so let's get started with the morale tests, I say. Right, yeah, so down here, to clear up that rule then, if you're meleeing the enemy in the flank, you get +1. So they get a +1 on their morale. They get a -1 because they're being meleeed in the flank, okay? They both get a -1 because they are both disordered, and I believe that's the situation that presents. Right, so they've got a morale of 6. They're disordered, but they get a +1 for melee in the flank. That means they still have a morale of 6. That means they can't lose the melee. The morale test. So they've passed. These, on the other hand, have got a morale of 5. They're disordered and they're being attacked in the flank, which means they have a morale of 3 now. So let's see what happens there. And sure enough, they have failed their morale test. Right. So they were disordered. That means they will rout. So that means that we are witnessing the exhaustion here of Osterman Tolstoy's division, surely. So they've got a rout. They've got a rout away from the enemy. So there's the enemy right there. I'm pretty sure that they don't disturb. I don't know. Will they attempt to rout through enemy deployed artillery? I don't think so. But their bacon has been saved again because they're going to rout. So there's not going to be a melee there. So there'll be no casualties to them. Let's sort that out. Right. So there we are. Osterman Tolstoy's division. Where's old Osterman Tolstoy? There he is. There's that chappy. There we are. There we go. He is indeed the commander of an exhausted division. So that means that they can no longer, for example, oh, wait a minute. Have I made a mistake over there? Just a second. Yes, I bet the sharp-eyed observers already noticed that over here with Saint-Hilaire, chaps. Zoom out. I had them, and I had them marked as having become stationary, but they can't because they're an exhausted division. Nope, can't do it, won't have it. Right, not allowed. Okay, so, right, so over here, that's right, so the Russians routed off there, all gone. The French occupied the position and are allowed a free facing change, which they've now faced those chaps over here. Okay, and we've got these chaps here who in their firing arc, let's see, they could fire at the Cossacks here. They're in the way, they can't fire at them. I suppose they could fire all the way down there at the horsemen, at the light cavalry. Doesn't seem like a lot of point in doing that, because the light cavalry, of course, can't close with us now. They can't. All they can do is get in the way, so to speak. Let's see. There's no disadvantage to fire. I mean, you might as well fire, obviously, if you can. They are stationary, aren't they? They are stationary, yes. And it's not an exhausted division, no, so they're allowed to go stationary. Sorry about this, but I suppose you'll see the action unfolding live in front of you. No, light cavalry's too far away. They're a field battery. They have a range of, 1,000 yards. I can't fire at them. So they could fire here at the, let's just do it. Right, they'll fire at the jolly old Cossacks, hitting on sixes, and they got nothing. Okay, right, so moving on. Right, now the Pavlovsky, yes. Now it's not quite as significant as it was a moment ago because the division, the fact that the division will become exhausted has already been decided. I suppose if casualties get racked up against these now, then that could make the difference, of course, of whether the division becomes, the division morale collapses. Right, yes, you see. Right, so let's see what happens there. Right, so they're being melee. Oh, we got to... Wait a minute, I should have done all the morale tests first, shouldn't I? I'm getting terribly excited here. Yes, I should have done them all first. But, right, let's test their morale. Okay, they are disordered. Their morale 6, so if they roll a 6, they will fail the morale test. Right, here we go. Let's get this thing a bit closer. Oops, sorry about that, chaps. There we are. No, so they're fine. Let's see what the French get. They have a morale of 6, and they have nothing negative on them, so they can't fail it. So I'm just going to put that away. Right, I'm not going to do the combat. That was the wrong sequence. Okay, we've got to do all the morale tests first. So their morale is 6. I can't see anything negative against them. They're not attacking uphill or anything like that. So they have passed their morale test by my adjudication. Okay. And then the enemy facing them, these chaps here have a morale of 5. They are testing because of the guns in front of them. Okay. Oh my god, if I can get my hand in there, probably make a mess of this. There we go. Alright, they have a morale of 5, and they're fine. Okay, they've got a morale of 5. I said they're not counting as being uphill. Okay, and they have passed their test, and we've already done them. These chaps here have got a morale of 5. No, these dice actually belong to them. That's where I put them. They've got a morale of 5. Now, they are uphill. So who gets the benefit for that? Do they get the benefit, or is it a negative on the attackers? Let's see, morale. Higher ground, defending higher ground, they get a +1. Okay, so that means they have a morale of 6, which means that they can't fail. Okay, these chaps here, right? There's no negative for attacking up a hill. Right, they have a morale of 5. And they have just scraped through. Okay. All right. Let's take the equipment with us and do the rest of the morale tests, because I have them all laid out. I don't have all the combat dice laid out yet, but I have all the morale tests laid out. Okay. Right. Rather important here. Let's test the Russian hussars, the light cavalry, and they're fine. Yeah, I suppose let's just roll the die first, and then if it's a contentious number, cuirassier, we know they're fine, so you just get on with it. Right, okay, these chaps here, they've got a morale of 5. I think that's about it from here. Okay, they passed it anyway. These chaps here have got a morale of what? 5. There we go. They're testing because of close range enemy, and they have indeed. Let's see. They get a +1 because they're being attacked uphill, but they're not heavy guns, and the enemy is downhill down there. So they get a +1, so they just scrape through that morale test. Okay, yeah, I'm going to give them that. Okay, so we've done all the morale tests. And just briefly there, I mentioned the fact that the French chaps firing uphill to them over there. If you remember, that was over there. Those chaps in the centre firing at them. I said, and they're not heavy. Actually, that one doesn't apply in that instance. Anyway, cracking on. So over here we have got the Pavlovsky Grenadiers. Let's see what they can do. They did not charge, so they are only hitting on 6s. Okay, and they have got 2 hits. Ooh. Okay, 2. We knew it was going to be bloody, and here come the French meleeing back. Oh no, wait. They're disordered. So that means we have to roll for... Let's do that first. Those are the French dice. The French roll saving rolls for any hits coming from disordered unit. And that one is... I'm going to say that one's skewed, so I'm going to roll that one again. Right, so we've got 1 hit that wasn't saved and another hit that wasn't saved. So there are indeed 2 hits on them. And then the French are going to melee back. Let's see what they can do. And they have got 2 hits. Okay, so 2 hits on the Russians. All right. Yeah, let's make sure we know those are hits. Okay, let's sort that out.